Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session, the first session of the Innovating Internet of Things with Design. Really glad to see so many of you, so many IoT enthusiasts have registered to gain knowledge, to learn something about Internet of Things. Before I proceed further, let me just explain about the flow. As we know that there are so many registered participants in this session, and we have various backgrounds. Some have said that they are from beginner, they are still learning, some say they are an advanced stage. As I need to cater for all of the different participants, I'll try as much as possible to explain as simple as possible, at the same time to also cater for those who are in the advanced stage. And I would also like to welcome those in the live stream, an online live stream, which is on Facebook, as well as the YouTube live. Thank you. And we have participants from all over the Malaysia and also a few from other countries as well. I welcome all the feedbacks, all the responses that you have, all the questions that you have. Please write it down, all the questions, in the question section in Amit, or you can also type in your questions in Facebook or even in YouTube. We will try as much as possible to answer those questions at the end of the session, towards the 10 to 15 minutes to the end of the sessions. And in case that I could not answer all the questions, we will try to answer this separately offline. We'll create a separate question and answer page within Favoriot website. Okay, so this whatever you call it, so I call it is a kind of a talk. You can call it as a training. It's actually a prelude. A prelude means it's an introductory kind of a training that for more to come. It could be full day courses for a week, or short 2 days course, or in fact an online course that we are preparing and planning in the near future. Now, so as again, please allow me to complete the session, and then we can start the question and answer towards the end. Okay, so thank you so much for cooperating. So let me move on. So just about Favoriot, we established in 2017. It's going to be 4 years with the co-founders, Dr. Mazlan and Dr. Wei, which we wanted to help the community. We wanted to help industries in moving forward in IoT. So for that purpose, what we have done is that we have actually started with building an IoT platform, the in-house built platform, and since then we have moved on to strengthen the platform to offer various kinds of services that is required by industry players for various segments of players. And as of now, so we have more than 3,800 registered developers in the platform from more than 100 countries. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Now, just a bit about myself. I'm also the co-founder, and currently I'm the CTO of Favoriot Sdn Bhd, the organization that I'm currently attached to. I've been in the ICT field for more than 20 years, including R&D from various organizations from USM, MLabs, AIMS, MIMOS, Rator IoT, and now with Favoriot. Just to give a background of Internet of Things. Now, Internet of Things in Malaysia is not new. In fact, I would say that we are one of the pioneers in starting the research work in IoT back in 2010 in MIMOS. Since then, A lot of things has changed in the IoT field. Various new technology has actually been introduced to simplify certain things, to offer the services to various sectors, and so on and so forth. I've also done the data science specialization that I feel it's quite important and quite necessary in the field of IoT. On top of that, I'm also the certified trainer. And currently, I'm also the chairman of the IoT working group under the Malaysian Technical Standard Forum, and a former IPv6 working group chairman. Been a speaker, standard developer, and various other things that I've been doing all the while. Now, let's move on to the proper flow. So the presentation today, as I mentioned, will be focusing on the design thinking, of course, but just to give an overview of IoT as well, because as I mentioned earlier, there are also beginners in this group. So it is good for us to understand what is IoT, followed by what is IoT ecosystem. Then we move to design thinking, and then how design thinking help, or how both IoT and design thinking can make a successful deployment for IoT. So what I've done is that I've actually created a new framework. I will share one part or some part of the IoT framework in this slide. And of course, what is Favoriot's position in IoT, right? Locally as well as globally. Just to give another information, I would say, I will actually provide some reward to some participants. So just keep listening towards maybe in the middle or towards the end. You need to do something to get the reward. All right, so let's move on. Just a bit of history and definition of IoT. I think this is important if you want to start a project on IoT. What we need to know, what is this IoT? What is Internet of Things all about? The IoT term is coined by Kevin Ashton, right? Back in 1999. And in fact, it is not new. Not new in the sense of the precursor of IoT is actually M2M. And M2M existed many years for telemetry, vending machines, ATM teller machines. In fact, it was started back in 1960s. It's a machine-to-machine communication. So we can go in detail if you want to in the separate sessions how to differentiate M2M, what's the best to define IoT and so on. But simply put, right, IoT is actually internet-connected devices that collect and sends data that will be used to improve existing service or solve a problem. Now, are there many devices available? Yes. Back in 2015, it was estimated about 15 billion devices. And it's projected to be 75 billion. And in fact, this projection varies from organization to organization. Some say it's 100 billion, some say about 50 billion. So this is just an estimated number. Now, I love this diagram. This is from AIG Insurance. In fact, they've actually succinctly, created this, providing all the relevant information in one chart. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the definition of it, but I will walk you through the various aspects within IoT. Here it is stated, as I mentioned earlier, but in 2015 there were 15 billion devices, and it will grow to 40 to 50 billion in 2020. This was quite an old chart, but I think it is relevant because it captures all the information that is required to understand IoT in the most simplest manner. Now, what is important is that IoT helps. Okay, it helps in sensing or to monitor what is difficult to monitor earlier. For example, if you want to monitor the water level in a drainage or in the river, or you want to monitor the water quality, or you want to monitor the environment such as gases that's available in the factories, for example, in an operational environment, or you want to track certain properties. So these are some of the things that it's difficult to measure earlier. But with the advent of IoT, this made it simple, right? So since enable IoT, every object, even human body as well. Now, as we know, there are so many sensors out there, so many, right? Imagine even in your smartphone now, it has more than 10 to 15 different kind of sensors. Ambient light, accelerometer, magnetometer, motion sensor, ambient, SpO2 to measure your oxygen level, temperature and humidity, and so on and so forth. The list just goes on. And thanks to various research institutions, they are coming up with the new technologies, new sensors to cater for various kinds of services. Now, the question rises, why IoT now, right? One of the reasons is that sensors are becoming cheaper. And this is the reason why we see an accelerated growth of IoT. Imagine a cost of accelerometer back in 2007 is about $7, and about 4 years ago is about 50 cents. Now maybe it's cheaper. And of course, the other aspect is that the processing of those devices become much efficient, faster, and smoother compared to those days. And this is again to the thanks to the Moore's law, the transistors keep increasing every 18 months. Next, what you see is that it is actually a new economy age. When I say new economy age, it's actually a new business model, a new growth for the world. Now, if you seriously look into this, it is stated that the GDP of European Union is 14.4 trillion in 2020. That was last year, and I assume it could be more than that as well. When I mention is economic growth, the economic growth that directly impacted by IoT solutions. And the use of IoT is in various sectors, from automotive industry, banking, marine, property, energy sector, aerospace, healthcare, manufacturing, food, you name it, right? It cut across horizontally in all the sectors. Of course, in any IoT or ICT type of solution, there is a risk as well. IoT also have a risk of being compromised. So we need to ensure that in the deployment stage, in the preparation of deployment or preparation or planning stage, we need to ensure that security is taken care of. One of the incident that happened a few years ago where a Mirai botnet is a botnet that actually compromised more than 300,000 IoT devices. There was also another issue where a Jeep or car has been hacked remotely. Now, the question is why and how it is being hacked, how is it being compromised, right? So we need to ensure that all those things is taken care of. You see the bottom there, right? So what IoT will provide, for example, is a safety, efficiency, decision making as well, and infrastructure. Now, we have looked into a kind of a synopsis of what IoT, what sectors that it can be used. In fact, it can be used for all the sectors, you name it. And now look into what are the top emerging IoT technologies, right? And the list can always increase, can always be updated. The first one is the security. I mentioned earlier, IoT devices is the easiest target to be compromised if it is directly connected to the internet. In fact, IoT devices has to be connected to the internet. Why is it that easily compromised? Is because one is that it has a very low processing power, most of it, because you need to run for a very long duration. So you need to ensure that a proper security mechanism has to be in place. Second is analytics. The data that you have collected over time, you can use it to have prediction, prognostics, diagnosis, and all the relevant data can be interrelated to provide some kind of solution. Third is the IoT device management. And this is actually important if you want to constantly upgrade the devices. You want to make sure that you can configure these devices remotely. And this is one aspect of it. And of course, the range of communication, long range or short range, which I will explain about this briefly later. IoT processor, this is important. Operating system, there are various kinds of operating system. They call it firmware and all those things. There are open sources of this operating system that's available, and it's keep evolving. Next is IoT platform. There are so many IoT platform for various applications. It could be a vertical types of applications, meaning that one IoT platform for one types of solutions or one type of connectivity or one type of communication type. Or it could be a horizontal type of a platform to gather information from various types of connectivity. And the last part is that IoT standard. Now, in the IoT standards, there are few organizations that actually actively contributing and coming up new standards. IoT Study Group 20 is one of it. IEC has their own a chapter on IoT and the work related to it. We have Industrial Internet IoT Consortium. They have an excellent document. If you want to deploy an IoT, for example, in the industry environment, they have standards, they have specification documents in terms of communication, in terms of the connectivity that is required, and so on and so forth. So these are the evolving technology, evolving sectors within IoT. Okay, let's move on. Okay. So the next is that we have looked into what is IoT in general, what is the emerging technology. Now let's look specifically in the IoT ecosystem itself. There are various similar diagrams to depict the interaction between this component. I call this part here, I call those are components within the platform. There are detailed components which divided the devices into sensors, into the communication part and so on. But what I've actually created is actually group them so that you can understand it in the simplest manner. So we have 4+1, I call it, devices. Now devices here consist of the sensors, all the sensors, temperature sensor, humidity sensor, soil sensor, all the sensors. And then the processing device, that means it reads the data from the sensors, and also the communicating part of it. How does it translate or transmit the data to wherever it wants to be sent to? That is devices. And in fact, gateway are also considered in this group, which is devices. Next, we have connectivity. There are various kinds of connectivity in IoT. I will touch a bit later. I won't go in detail now. Next, once you capture the data, you need to send the data in the correct format to a cloud or to a platform. Now, the purpose of the platform is to aggregate the data. Now, a lot of people have a wrong conception of platform. They say it's just another database. Yes, it is a kind of a database, but it does more than that. As I mentioned in my previous slide, There are various kinds of platforms, vertical types of platforms, horizontal type of platforms. It all depends on the need for deployment. The last, the component is the application part of it, which also consists of analytics, dashboarding, mobile app. So these are a 4 component. Plus one, I mentioned plus one. Now the plus one is the security and privacy part of it. We need to ensure that security exists at each of these layers. It could be at a device layer security, connectivity layer, it's a platform layer, it could be an application layer security, right? So at each of these components, the security must be in place. Okay, so let me move on to the next. Yes. So taking specifically in terms of connectivity, right? So they are described into 2 parts, short range and the long range. Short range could be RFID, Bluetooth and a BLE, Bluetooth low energy, Wi-Fi, mesh technology, and more towards proprietary, which is Zigbee, Z-Wave. There are many other things. When I say short range, it ranges from a few meters to almost about 500 meters in some situation. Long range, on the other hand, can go up to kilometers. Right? So there are 2 parts. One is the LP1, low power wireless area network, and it has 2. One is the licensed, and then the other one is unlicensed. Licensed, we have heard about NB-IoT, LTE-M. Unlicensed band, which is getting popular now, so LoRa-based standards and the Sigfox. These are the 2 main, I would say, most used, not only in Malaysia, but also the other part of the world. And of course, we have 3G, 4G, and then 5G as well. Okay, 3G, we are actually removing 3G soon, but 4G and 5G is the next wave. Now, moving forward, now this is just an introductory. Let us understand better how to know whether it's an IoT, because most people, they will deploy a solution, they say it's an IoT solution, but it may not be an IoT solution at all. So let me give you an example. I want you to think whether it is an IoT or not IoT. Okay, just give an exercise, because I don't want to talk and without interaction. So I want some kind of interaction. Okay. Now, the first statement, right? The first thing is that you bought a home air conditioner, which is activated, which can be activated by a smartphone. The packing label says it's a Wi-Fi ready. Is it an IoT or not IoT? This is the first one. Second, a CCTV camera is connected to a home computer for security surveillance. Is it an IoT or not an IoT? The third one, a smartwatch that sends your data to a cloud, to a platform for monitoring and the management of a particular wearer or the device. Is it an IoT or not an IoT? Okay, so you can process, you can think, you can answer it. I'll just give the answer just a few seconds. Okay. Okay, so I can see some of you answered in the chat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. So is it IoT or not IoT? Right. So that's the question. Yes. The first 2 are not IoT. The last one, yes, it's IoT. But if you look at the air conditioner, it can become an IoT if it is connected to the platform. It sends regular data in terms of the usage pattern. What's the temperature being used at what particular time? And the purpose of this is that you can know when is the next service it is required, for example. This is an example, okay? What's the next service going to be? Now, if you use that type of solution, then yes, it's an IoT. But if an air conditioner is just a standalone, you just communicate, you can control the temperature using your phone, it's not an IoT. Same goes for CCTV camera. CCTV camera, it captures information, you view it in your home. It does not connect, it does not have any analysis for that purpose, it does not interact back, and it's not an IoT solution. So this is all about IoT. Let me move straight to the design thinking so that you have an idea what is design thinking and why IoT can be used together with design thinking. Okay, so let me move on. Okay, now design thinking is not new. Okay, so you can think it's something like an agile process, a lean methodology as well. It is just an innovation process, and it has existed for almost, I would say, 4 or 5 decades, I think, right? It's been there. But nowadays, it is being reapplied, it has been enhanced to support various kinds of problems or solutions, to create solutions. Now, design thinking will actually help you to create, to develop, to test, and again, to the end, fail or succeed faster. This is a step-by-step guide for you to apply in identifying a problem until you ideate a solution, until you deploy. And the difference between the design thinking and a normal process of, for example, scientific thinking, is design thinking solely focused on the solution rather than a problem. Of course, it starts with the problem. You need to identify the problem. But as we go along in the process, your aim is to create a solution base. That means the solution is your focus, not the problem. There's a totally different. Of course, I cannot explain in detail in this one session. There'll be need a separate session just for this purpose. So the design thinking process, there are various, but the famous one is 5-step process. Now, in that 5-step process, the first step is to empathize or know the problems that you wanted to tackle. The second is to define the problems properly. See, sometimes when a customer approaches to us for a problem, it must be clearly defined. So you need to ensure that you need to clearly define the problem. Next, we move to the next stage, which is the ideation stage, this one, and then prototype, and then test. So this is the process for the design thinking. Now, it is, as I mentioned earlier, it's actually an innovation process, a process that helps you in properly create a solution, a proper path to create the solution. I'll give an example in design thinking, or I will say innovation, right? A best example is a tic-tac-toe. You know tic-tac-toe, right? So you fill in 0, X, and so on. And it's usually is a 3 by 3. It's a bit difficult for you to win the tic-tac-toe. But what if you have a different way or different rules, or you break the rule? I'm not asking you to break normal rules, rules in terms of ideating the solution. What if you break those rules? For example, in the tic-tac-toe solution, what if you can get extra turn? What if you use the other guy's asset? What if you define the victory flexibly? Instead of straight line, you have a different kind of line. Or you cooperate with your partner. Now, this is something that can come out in the ideation stage. And this is important because in the design thinking, you should not be looking into the problem. Because when you look into the problem, you will try to solve only that particular problem. I'll give you another example. The COVID, right? So COVID-19 is the most easiest example that I can give. So the problem here is that how to find a vaccine, what vaccine that you want to find. So that is a problem based. Maybe at the end, if you focus on you can still get the solution if you focus on the problem. Maybe you will get, for example, a vaccine to stop the virus. But if you generalize it, the COVID-19, the solution could be many. Not only vaccine, it could be maybe a drinkable solution, or maybe to kill the viruses once it's out, or different kinds of solutions. So this is what I mean by solution focus. Now, when you focus on the solutions, there will be different kinds of solutions that you can create along the way. Now, the next step is that how can we combine both this design thinking and IoT? So I've come up with a combination of both, which is called IoT Design Thinking Framework. And again, I'm going to state this here. This is just a guide that will help you in the process of identifying the problem until you create a proper solution. And it is up to you whether you want to apply this in your deployment or not. So let me just briefly explain some part of the design thinking framework, because if I want to explain in detail, it will take almost a day because it is a step-by-step process. And how does it actually integrate with the IoT? Now, in the again, I'm going to state here, some component is an evolution of the existing design thinking. Meaning to say, the 5 steps that I've mentioned earlier, I've collapsed it into few so that it can cater for this type of solutions. Now, in this framework, this part is actually on the design thinking process. First, you need to understand, or you need to discover. So what you mean by discover is that you need to get more information from your customer in terms of what problems are they having, either the product or services. Or if you want to create any solutions, you can internally discuss on specific problem that you want to solve. Now the process for it, right? So the process for it, there are many stages. It could be a questionnaire, it could be a survey, it could be an interview, it could be a discussion. And this is a very, very crucial and important step to move forward. The next part is the ideation. You'll be thinking, where is this IoT come here, right? Now, ideation is actually identifying the potential solution. Again, you may be thinking, because we have these various components within IoT. So let me just, this. And where do I focus on? Because you're creating an IoT solution, you need to look into all aspects or all components within the IoT ecosystem, starting from devices, type of connectivity, the platform to use, and the application. Only then can you actually focus on creating a solution. Now, in this ideation stage, right, you need to focus on, again, during this ideation stage, you should focus on the strength of your organization. Your strength may not be, for example, on connectivity. Maybe your strength is on the device. Nevertheless, you can come up with the entire solution process. Meaning to say, you can identify the devices, you can identify the specific connectivity, the platform and the application, and then you can work out, for example, I know the company who can deliver this type of devices, but I will focus on the platform, or I will focus on the application. So this is the ideation. Now, in the ideation, you may get different kinds of solution for the same thing that you want to solve. In fact, that is the purpose of the ideation. Now, the attributes here, okay, so these are the attributes of all the separate components, the devices, the attributes of connectivity, the attributes of the platform, and then the attributes of the application layer. Now, what I mean by attributes is actually what specific, I'll give you an example. For devices, right? What type of sensors that I need for this solution? Is this one sensor sufficient, or do I need to add extra types of sensors? How frequent do I need to transmit the data? Can I process the data at the device level before I send? Or can I straight away send the data to the platform to be processed? Now, these are the type of attributes, the type of questions that we need to answer within the components. Again, I want to emphasize, this is a separate topic on its own to understand the entire process. And this is how the IoT component comes into the design thinking process. Next, once you've identified this, the next stage is actually validation. So you need to validate whether the solutions that you have proposed are desirable, are viable, or is feasible to do. I will go in detail for this in the next slide, but just think that these three components are crucial, and it's important for you to move forward whether you want to do the project, or if you find, or if you could not move forward, the suggested flow is that you go back to the discovery, get more questions, get more information, so that you can ideate more and solve a particular problem. And of course, the last part is the implementation. So once you validate, now validate here means is that testing your hypothesis of the possible solution. And then you do the implementation. And I put in a dotted arrow back to the discovery. The reason being is that sometimes we need to continuously improve the solution, continuously improve the product based on the feedback, based on your own experience of deploying, and so on and so forth. So this is a continuous flow of, it's an iteration, right? At the early stage prior to deployment or after the deployment, so you go back to it. So it's a cycle. And sometimes what happens is that during the ideation stage, you may find a different kind of solution. Okay, so that is important to capture and to actually relay back to the customer if need to. Now, next, let me give you an example of the ideation process. Now, we looked into the second stage now, not the first stage, not the discovery stage, okay, the ideation stage. Assuming a company has doing logistics, right? They have so many trucks delivering goods to various parts of the country, for example, and they've identified there's an issue with a high cost of fuel. And they came to you stating that, okay, so we have a big issue here. The trucks consuming a lot of fuel. Can you help us? So the thing that you need to understand is that maybe you can put a statement with sensors in customers' trucks. We can leverage that information to help reduce their fuel expenses. Okay, so that is the statement. Now, is the next stage, which is the real ideation stage. Now, the sensors, okay, good. So an IoT solution. Now, what if the deflated, so this is from the problems, huh? So you identify, you got this information from the problems you have, the information that you have gathered earlier. Deflated tires increase fuel consumption. What we can do? Add sensors to tire pressure, for example. Create alerts, or even create a self-inflating tire. So self-inflating tires could be a new solution. Second part, speeding increases fuel consumption. Obvious, right? Add sensors to the engine to monitor driver performance and curtail speed as needed. Okay, so this is important. So you can add sensors to the engine to monitor the driver's performance behavior. The third one is track fuel efficiency by driver. The different driver has a different driving pattern. And in fact, the way driver drives actually increases the fuel consumptions or directly impact the fuel consumption. And what if you can create a system by providing an incentive to the most fuel efficient drivers? So this is the process flow, and this is example of an IoT solutions that you can come up with just by these problems of high cost of fuel. Now this is the validation process I mentioned earlier. So desirable here means is that does it meet customers' needs? In the truck example just now, if you propose the solutions that I have listed down, does it meet the customer's needs? Maybe yes. So you need to convey back that information to them. Is it viable? Viable here means is that not only in terms of monetizing it, in terms of it creating value. Value here is in terms of the efficiency, in terms of the performance, in terms of, for example, reducing cost, increasing yield. So these are different types of value that you can create. Feasible, this is specifically whether you can deploy or not deploy. Again, it relates back your strength, your company's strength. Is it realistic to be deployed or not? Okay. Now, let me just give you an example of another issue that you can focus or think. This is a general issue. Of course, each one of us know about the problems that we have, right? The Selangor water pollution. Now, the issue here is that there's so many sources of water pollution. Water pollution from factories, someone dumped something. And remember, not necessary that one solution that you have created earlier could fit exactly to one solution to another problem. It may be a different way of solving. So you need to really understand what is the source of the problem and how to solve it. This is just an example of the problem. I'll leave it to you to discuss in the next session. We can discuss in detail of identifying a particular problem. Now, we are looking into the design thinking, a brief design thinking concept. Next, I'm going to focus on Favoriot platform. So Favoriot is actually a platform provider, and let me focus on that. And this is our actually interface and what is it all about. So before we move further, I'll just give you a quick reward. Okay, so I hope you're alert on this reward. The reward is this. I want you to either scan this QR code or you can go to this platform.favoriot.com. You register as a free user. So once you go here, you register as a free user with valid email address. Now, of course, I need to be fair with all. Not the first three. We have three free beginner account worth 100 ringgit each for a year. So we will choose the first, the 5th, and the 10th person who register. Okay, after this session. So you can do that now. So starting from now, the first person, the 5th person, and 10th person, we will communicate using that email address that you have registered. We will give you all the voucher. So I'll give, say, about 1 minute for maybe 2 minutes for you all to register this. It's pretty straightforward. You scan the QR code here, or go to this URL, and there is a section below that says that subscribe. Okay, register new user. So you do that, and then we will continue with what Favoriot platform offers. Okay. So we will actually know once you register. So we will get Let me see if there's any registration. Yes, I can see some registered. Still not yet. I mean, so those who are in YouTube Live and Facebook Live, you're most welcome as well. So it's open for all. Please register, and we will keep in touch to you by before end of today, by providing you the voucher for you to redeem your reward. Okay, so let me give another 1 minute, and then we move on. And thank you so much for those who have registered. And in fact, it is you have registered for free account, and with this free account, you can actually make use of it. Make use in the sense of it is meant to ease. I'll explain in detail about the platform after this, so that you better understand the capability of the platform and how it can easily be used in your IoT deployment. Okay, so let me see. So keep registering. And at the same time, if you have a specific question that you want to ask, you can type your question in AirMeet. There is a section called questions. Please keep posting your questions. Any questions related to IoT specific, it could be for this particular sessions, or it could be a generic question that you have. I don't see any question as of now, or maybe you have done that in the chat. I'm not so sure. I'll look into that. But it's easier if you can type down the questions that you have in the questions section. Okay, so let me move on. Okay, so let me move on and explain about the platform itself. I hope, and again, I'd like to congratulate, I don't know yet who are the winners, but just let me congratulate first before I move. So congratulations to those winners, but in fact, congratulate to all of you who have registered so that you can make use of the platform. Now, the favorite platform that we are focused on is actually an IoT, an open platform. Open in the sense of it can connect any types of devices. It can connect any types of connectivity. You can use three main communication protocol, which I will explain shortly. And you can make use of this for aggregating the data. And various other services is available within the platform. Now, then how will favorite platform assist developers, right, in building an IT solution? You can think of it as it's a rapid deployment tool. The ecosystem, we have devices, we have connectivity, we have platform. Now, because we have already built thinking or looking into all aspects of IT solution, it is easy for developers to just make use of it instead of recreating entire thing, which will take a lot of time. Trust me. Okay, it will take a lot of time to build an IoT platform. So it is a rapid development. It's a user-friendly API. It is all works on API base. It is scalable. It's hosted in the platform, in the cloud right now. And if it is need to, we can always redeploy it. We can always scale it to meet the demand. In fact, we are continuously updating and providing new services within the platform. Ease of onboarding IT devices. If you are familiar with the REST protocol, if you can work using on the REST protocol. But if you're not so familiar, if you are good at MQTT, you can use MQTT type of protocol or COAP and so forth. Flexible deployment. Now, if your organization require on-premise type of deployment, you can use it. Okay, there is an enterprise version for it. If you want a private cloud, we can also do that. So this platform is not only self-service in the sense of you make use of what is already available, but it can also be redeployed. But it's a different arrangement. We have a notification engine, which is integrated to email, SMSs, Telegram, And of course, to increase or to speed up the deployment, we have provided a lot of resources, the video resources, tutorial, documentation, GitHub resources, so many of them. So you just need to be a bit, motivated in deploying, look into all the resources so that you can quickly deploy your IoT solution. Now, some of the other things is that GraphBot, when we are based on the hierarchical approaches with a lot of microservices. So these are some of the, I would say features. I would say this is hierarchical approach. So we have from projects, applications, groups, devices, and streams. And this is just an image taken of how a GraphBot will look like with all the data stream that has been. Right. So let me just conclude just another few more slides, and then we can take a question and answer. So there are various kinds of IoT projects and experiments that's been deployed in various devices, environment, solutions, and so on. So this is specifically on the IoT platform. On top of that, Favoriot also offer different kinds of solutions, but focusing on the platform and the end goal. So what we do is that if there's a need, so we will actually work with the specific hardware players to come up with the various kinds of solutions. In this case, we have smart tracking, construction, smart factory, warehouse, agriculture, city, tourism, and so on and so forth. Now, on top of that, we also do specific consultation and training. As for what I mentioned earlier, this particular talk is just a prelude, right? So if there's a need for us to, define, to dissect further in a specific problem, or you want to know more about how to go about applying the framework that I've already mentioned earlier, we can go in detail in maybe a longer duration, proper training, right? Maybe a 2 to 5 days of training course and so on. So in summary, so what we have looked into is that if you look, I've explained about IoT. And again, if you want to, you can go and look into the one diagram that I mentioned that is created by AIG. Thanks so much for AIG. And then we looked into the design thinking framework, IoT design thinking framework, which I've created. And then specifically in what Favoriot IoT platform or what Favoriot offers in the IoT world. Now with that, I will move on to question and answer. So if you have any questions, so let me see in the question part of it. Thank you so much for listening. So let me see if you have any question. So far, no questions. In Amit, let me see if there are any questions in the YouTube or Facebook Live. So let me see if there's any questions here. Platform can connect to other protocols such as Zigbee, Wi-Fi. Yes, as I mentioned, this platform is independent of the communication protocol. Zigbee, Wi-Fi, or FTP. Wi-Fi is just a communication means. Okay, so similar to, see, what is important is that you need to ensure that you have set the format of sending the data, and you apply the APIs that has been published in the Favoriot platform. So you make use of the APIs, configure your device to send using a certain format, and you are good to go. Okay, so it's any communication, connectivity, but communication time, the what we are using is MQTT, CoAP, and REST. Okay, do Favoriot have own node rate? No, not yet. In fact, that is something that we are working on right now. It will be there maybe in the next revision. Platform data located in the public. Yes, it's a public cloud. This is a public cloud for now. Again, the data belongs to you. Okay, so we have no access to your data unless you want us to access for some purpose. Okay. Next question is that, is it private cloud can be deployed in a private cloud depending on the solution. Okay, meaning that if you feel that you want a specific deployment, right, in your organizations, we can deploy that, but that will be only for you. The one that we have right now is public cloud, so anybody can actually use it, subscribe. It's a self-service kind of a thing. Yes, HTTP post is in a REST format. In fact, REST is actually HTTP format. It can be used in IoT. Question from Facebook. I may have missed something, so what are the other questions? My network blocks MQTT. Can you advise any alternative protocol? So as I mentioned, we have three main protocols. REST is one. Second, because REST uses HTTP format, so I don't think your organization will block. Okay, or if that is also blocked, maybe you can make use of CoAP. Okay, so try this. If you think that it's not possible for you all to connect, let us know. Maybe we can actually advise on what to do next. Okay, so there's a question on blocking. How to reduce the connectivity cost in future as more uptake of IoT? Now, it's an excellent question. See, that is the purpose. You see, there is a trade-off in a sense of, if you want to deploy an IT solution, if you look into the framework that I've mentioned earlier in terms of connectivity, you need to first identify where is it being deployed, right? If you feel that there are, for example, LoRa services being provided, tap into the LoRa services. Maybe it's cheaper in terms of connectivity. But in some cases, LoRa is not available. In fact, LoRa and Sigfox may not be available everywhere. So you need to depend on, for example, 5G or 4G for that matter, right? Maybe it is cheaper. I'm not so sure about the cost, but this is the trade-off. So you need to carefully design and understand the solution, the connectivity cost here, right? And in some cases, it may be an enclosed area where you can provide the solutions, Wi-Fi, for example. If it's a long range, of course, you need to consider other types of solution, right? Another, in terms of IP, how can we protect our IoT solution? How can we protect our IoT solution? Now, if you are looking into, see, as I mentioned, there are various. Now, the question here is, in terms of intellectual property, how can we protect our IoT solution? There are, different kinds of components, device level, and then the platform level, application level. Now, if you take, for example, device, if you are a device manufacturer, of course, you can have IP in terms of the design of it, in terms of how best you send the data. So there are various kinds. So in fact, if you talk about IP, there's totally a separate section. Yes, you can, but you need to know what is your strength. It is very rare that you can actually protect an entire solution, right? That is impossible, but you can do that specific, for example, the device type, or how does it communicate, and so on and so forth. That you can do. Okay. My network blog GMI that pakai IT. Okay. Let me read maybe one or two more questions I will take from here. Is there a document that can provide consideration and guideline for selecting when to select which protocol? Now, that's the thing. See, the framework that I've just explained just now is just a part of the overall framework. In fact, if you work on the detailed framework, it identifies all the things that has been requested here in terms of consideration and guideline. If you follow the step by step, you will know which protocol. Okay, there are some questions. If you answer it for the questions, you can get the answers for all these components. Okay, the type of connectivity, the frequency of sending, whether it need actuation or not. So these type of questions need to be answered. Okay, so maybe okay, it's 11, so I will take one last question. Currently, there's a question in high tech for smart home. We are using IFTTT, MI Sonoff. We wanted to try using Favoriot platform. Have you been trying to work with the solution that I mentioned before? Yes and no. I'm not so sure exactly what you mean by working with the solution, but we will get in touch with you and see what exactly that you meant here, working with this type of solution, right? But if those, these may not be the protocol itself. See, sometimes what happens is that if you use a proprietary types of solution, in a proprietary type of communication protocol and so on, it's difficult for you to directly send to any platform unless it comes with it. So what we suggest is that there must be some kind of a translation between the proprietary to the common format, which I mentioned earlier. So that is required. So we need to further understand the type of solutions, the type of communication that already exist. If it is new, yes, we can start fresh. Okay. So these are some of the questions. Now, so we will stop here. For all the other questions, what we will do is that we will capture this question. We will get in touch with you, or we will put a generic question and answer page, and we will communicate with each and every one of you. With that, let me just, yes. Thank you so much for being a very interactive. I can see there's so many questions. There's another question. Can we use Sigfox? Yes, you can. In fact, we have integrated with Sigfox earlier. Sigfox, the way it works is slightly different. The data that is transmitted over Sigfox, it goes to the Sigfox cloud. And then from Sigfox cloud, it has to be connected to IoT platform like us. In fact, we have done that earlier. Thank you so much. Thanks all for joining. What we will do, if there is a need, if you feel that you need to understand more, if you feel that you need to go entire process, a proper process of deploying, we will have a separate, a full day session. And if you need any help, if you need any assistance in terms of integrating IT solutions, feel free to connect to us. We will always be there to help, to assist, and we can always work together in providing IoT solutions for various sectors. With that, I hope you all enjoy the session. In fact, if you have any comments, any suggestions, I know that some of you have requested some information which I've not covered here, but please feel free to come back to us, provide what is your request. Maybe in the next part, the next part of the training or talk, I will try my best to include those information. With that, thank you and see you soon. Bye.